Hello good people! This is FisherTwelve and we have another exciting Call of Duty eSports video for you guys today, as always. And over the past couple of weeks we've actually had two LAN events both in Europe. We've had the eSports World Cup in France and we've had the Gfinity Spring Masters in London. So this video is going to be a recap of those two tournaments and then kind of talking about the eSports scene, or the COD eSports scene as it stands after these two tournaments. So let's start by quickly recapping the eSports World Cup and what happened there. So this is the smallest eSports World Cup tournament that out of the three that there's been so far. I don't know why, but every year they seem to just drop off 4 teams, and I'm not really sure why, but the prize pool always goes up, so I guess that's good from a player's perspective. But we had 8 teams there. We had 2 groups. The first group was Optic, Denial, Millennium, and Barrage. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. And the second group was Revenge, Vitality Storm, Epsilon, and FaZe France. And coming out of Group 1 was, of course, Optic Gaming and Denial. Denial almost didn't make it out of group play. It almost went to Barrage, but the map win-loss count ended up going into Denial's favor, which ultimately put them over Barrage. But both of them, actually all 3 of them, all 3 teams, Optic, Denial, and Barrage, finished with a 2-1 record out of group play. And actually a similar story in Group 2 as well, with Team Revenge and Vitality Storm coming out of that group play with a 2-1 record. Their map counts being 8-4 and 8-5 respectively. Epsilon eSports also finished with a 2-1 record, but their map win-loss was a 6-6, so not good enough to put them past Vitality Storm or Team Revenge. Then in the playoffs we had Optic Gaming facing off against Vitality, who actually got 3-0'd by Optic. And then we had TR facing up against Denial, who would fall short with that map count going 3-2 in Denial's favor. And then in the finals, we had Optic Gaming facing off against Denial. And this wasn't quite a squash match, but it definitely wasn't close, with Optic Gaming coming on top with a 3-1 map victory over Denial. So a couple thoughts just on the eSports World Cup. I think this would have, not to say this was a bad event by any means. I thought the venue was fantastic. I thought the crowd was energetic, and that was great to hear. But I didn't think the teams played as well as they usually do, and I was a little disappointed like that. Although TR played great, I definitely think they would have played better if they were still playing together as a team with 2 of their members now in Prophecy. I feel like maybe the teamwork wasn't quite as strong as we saw Call of Duty Champs. And then Denial did put on a very good showing, but I was a little surprised with how short they fell to Optic Gaming. Now, moving on to the slightly more action-packed Gfinity Spring Masters. This also started off as a group play, only there were 16 teams involved, so we had 4 groups of 4. I'm just going to run through those very quickly, starting off with Group A, which is Optic Gaming, Strictly Business, Epsilon eSports, and Gamers 2. Group B is Denial eSports, TCM Gaming, Team Infused, and Hyper Games. Group C is Envy, Optic Nation, Vitality Storm, and Fab. Group D is going to be Team Caliber, Prophecy, Mindfreak, and Aware. Now, similar to the eSports World Cup group play, 2 teams are going to come out of each group, but slightly different than the eSports World Cup is that as opposed to tossing it up to map count, they actually did a bracket. So it really didn't matter what your map count was, because when you lost, you fell down to basically a loser's bracket within your group. Now, I thought that idea was pretty cool, but nonetheless, the teams coming out of Group A were Optic Gaming and Epsilon eSports. Coming out of Group B was Denial and TCM. Coming out of Group C was Envy and Optic Nation. And coming out of Group D was Prophecy and, surprisingly, Aware over Team Caliber. Then in the quarterfinals, we saw victories from Prophecy over Epsilon, Optic Nation over Denial, TCM over Envy, and Optic Gaming over Aware. Then in the semifinals, we saw victories from Prophecy over Optic Nation and Optic Gaming over TCM. So that would put together a Prophecy versus Optic Gaming final, which was a very close. It had started to be a blowout. It looked like it was going to be 3-0. Prophecy brought it back to a 2-2 map count versus Optic, but then Optic was able to finish it out in Search and Destroy with a 6-4 victory over Prophecy. Now, I think the outcome of these 2 tournaments are very interesting. First off, we have Optic Gaming, who has won 2 tournaments, so now really no question that they are the top team, despite making a team change. Actually, I guess you could really call this a double team change, which we'll talk about in a second. You have Prophecy that is playing exceptionally well, picking up 2 members from Team Revenge. You had Optic Nation give their best showing probably since the start of Advanced Warfare. And then you had Denial, who has been playing exceptionally well, fall short of expectations, we'll say. And Envy, I was expecting to play slightly better, but this is their first LAN as a team, and they had Merc as opposed to their usual Saints, so it is a little questionable if this is how they'll typically place or not. And then Team Caliber was just a straight shock. I was expecting them to be playing a lot better than they did. I don't know if just maybe Aware had their number that day or what was up, if maybe it's just that this is their first LAN, but they did not play to expectations at all, placing, 9th through 12th, basically. But going back to Optic Gaming now, they've won the past 2 tournaments with Enable as a sub for Karma, so Optic Gaming has to be asking themselves, is this something we want to stick with? Is this a permanent situation we want to continue with? Sure, their initial intentions were to replace Nadeshot with Karma until Nadeshot decides to come back or does not decide to come back, but Karma was the man that they were going with, but he was unable to travel to events outside the US, which would no longer be a factor going forward, because I think he got the proper visa or paperwork or whatever it was today, as a matter of fact, which will allow him to travel to events outside the US. But Optic Gaming has to be asking themselves, do we want to go with our original plan, or do we want to go with this new plan that we've seen immediate success with? I think it would be crazy for Optic Gaming to not consider the option, simply because they know they can win with Enable. And they know that they can win online tournaments with Karma, but do they know that they can win on LAN with Karma? And the answer technically is no, they don't know. They can assume, they can do numbers and calculate and form hypotheses all they want, but ultimately there isn't a factual evidence that they can. So they have to be asking themselves, do we want Enable moving forward, or do we want Karma? Fortunately for Optic, they'll have some time to sit and ponder this idea, as the Season 2 trade deadline has already passed, so they're going to have to use Karma at least until June 7th, until the Summer X Games, where the Season 2 playoffs are being held. But after that, then Optic Gaming will make the decision, are we going to stick with Enable, or are we going to stick with Karma, or maybe Nadeshot will come back. But that will be a topic for another video. So, guys, let me know in the comments down below what you think the future of Optic Gaming will be. And unfortunately, that will bring us to the end of our video today. So, if you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a like. And if you're new here, make sure to click that subscribe button for more content. And feel free to stalk me on Twitter at FisherTwelve, same as the channel name link down in the description, alongside a link to my live stream over at twitch.tv/FisherTwelve, where I live stream Tuesday through Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope to see you guys there. Hope you enjoyed the video, and take care.